Hi guys, welcome back to Kit's Podcast. Today we're getting straight into it. So, just about yesterday, we were watching Pirates of the Caribbean, and it's really fun when you watch that and you're a history buff because I feel like you get to see and learn a whole bunch of things that, or you just recognize things that you didn't before. So, here's the thing. Today you're having a history lesson, but I promise it's going to be fun. So, in the 1450s, all the way up to the 17th century, that was when sea trade became its biggest hit. It was after the Silk. Well, it was kind of in between the Silk Road and the Trans-Saharan trade route, and the Indian trade route was one of the biggest traversed trade routes, especially because maritime exploration with development in technologies was a really huge thing. The compass was being remastered and created better. The sextant was being made better. I don't think it was called that back then. And especially with ships. Ships were being made better, bigger and better. And up until now, European trade hadn't been super huge. You wouldn't count them as one of the highest places in the world at that moment. But when in the 1450s and the 1700s, that all changed. Now, the cool thing that this reminded me of with Pirates of the Caribbean is, they're pirates and they're being hunted by the East Indian Trading Company. And someone already made a little skit about this, how when there's magic and evil pirates, the biggest evil in all of the shows is the corporate and all of them and basically HR. So I won't remake that joke because it's kind of funny though. But if it was in real life, things would have worked a little differently for Jack Sparrow. First of all, he would have gotten paid, probably, and he would have been hired by the government. Let me explain. So at around the middle of the 1450s to the 1700s, one of the things that was happening is Spanish governments, or just European governments in general, would hire pirates, quote unquote. These were actually called buccaneers or privateers, and they were individuals. They were basically pirates with papers. They were individuals hired by the government to attack, that were basically given the okay to attack other trade ships. So it would be like, so Bob's a pirate. Bob's a little low on money right now, and he's got a crew and a ship, and he's ready to pillage and plunder, but he knows that if he attacks the wrong people, he could get in a lot of trouble. Well, then this Spanish guy comes up to Bob, and he's like, hey, do you want to pillage and plunder and get paid for it and have papers that say that you're okay so that you have a place to come back to where you won't be hunted and killed? And, of course, Bob's like, heck yeah! And so they're given papers, and they're called quote-unquote privateers, and they were basically told about other trade companies, and they were usually the competition for the Spanish, and they were there, and those were the ones that they were told to attack. And obviously these privateers and pirates had like their own system of doing things, and there was still a lot that like did their own thing and just robbed everyone, but most times they liked to keep to the system of quote-unquote being a privateer so that they could stay out of trouble, per se. And then there was a subcategory, and those were called buccaneers, and those operated mainly in the Caribbean. Those are more what probably influenced Pirates of the Caribbean, because there was a place called Tortuga, and they did originate in Tortuga. Those were more like bounty hunters or even like cargo shippers sometimes, but ended up looting other ships when need be, and because they weren't the most moralist of people. But it was a blooming time in history, because not only were the Spanish and European type empires coming to rise and starting to get their fill on sea-based stuff, but also the Chinese and even some of the Trans-Saharan and a lot of the Indian, so African trade ships were a thing, which obviously led to the slave trade. But also, I would like to give a fun fact with the slave trade that apparently not a lot of people know. So, in Africa, between the tribes, before European settlers came, it was very common for when there was a battle or a scuffle for prisoners of war to become slaves for that tribe. So they'd be put to work. Women would be working as weavers and sewers, and I'm sure other things as well. And then the men would be put to the heavy work, heavy lifting, whatever that tribe needed. That was very common. It also was true for prisoners, just like regular criminals. They were made as slaves. They weren't just put in a prison and locked up. Then when European people came, they traded with tribes, actual tribes. Yes, there was a lot of fight on that, and not all of it happened this way, but there were many times throughout this trading system where tribes would send out their slaves that they had, so either prisoners of war or just criminals that they caught, and they would send them out to the Europeans, and the Europeans would come back with whatever foods and stuff that they had. That was very common. White man did not start the slave industry. Am I saying we contribute? Am I denouncing the fact that we contributed to it? No. We definitely contributed to it, and we didn't make it any better than it was, but it did exist, and I learned that in my AP class, and I thought I'd share it. As well as some of the pirate facts. I think it's very cool. There's something so fun about the fact that, and also these governments, back to pirates, also these governments that would hire these privateers, they'd also very often deny the fact that they hired them. So if the other country or trade company came back to them and was like, hey, this guy that we just caught told us that you signed papers that you would pay him and he would attack us. What do you have to say about that? Europe or Spanish colonies and countries, empires, would basically just be like, no, that wasn't us. And so the whole system was kind of fun, but it was a huge time in history, not just because of the trade that was happening between different continents, but also because of the things that were being traded. And there was a huge exchange of ideas and religious beliefs at that time, because missionaries would come overseas to other places to tell about Christianity and Buddhism and all of those, and that was passed along a lot during this time. And it was definitely a monumental time to be alive. It was probably one of the biggest influential eras, other than the Enlightenment era, which was another exchange of ideas and thought, which led to movements like the American Revolution and the French Revolution and the Haitian Revolution, and even some Latin American squabbles that happened over in North and South America. But I will get to that in another episode, because I don't want to throw too much history at you guys for one day. But that will be all. This is Kitsune Saki signing out. Everyone have a great day.